Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.
Hey, everybody, welcome into another episode of Rounding the Bases presented by Community America Credit Union. Invested in you. A shout out to my friends at Chief of Staff Kansas City, making connections that matter. And I always love to share a little bit about them and what they do, because if you are in the market for a job, or if you are looking to hire someone, this is what I say all the time, and one of the reasons why I love to work with them. It's they're just good people. They get it. A lot of energy. They care. So check them out, chiefofstaffkc.com, making connections that matter. I also want to do a quick shout out, a little bit unrelated, but something I like to do from time to time for people in my network. In this case, a guy I've gotten to know who back a number of years ago, I spoke to his company. But a friend of mine here in town, Rodney Whittington, just coming out with a new book, and he's in the sort of healthcare nursing home industry. It's called Navigating Nursing Home Decisions, an Insider's Guide to Finding the Right Care. And that's certainly something that applies to so many people. Rodney E. Whittington Jr. I wanted to give him a shout out. And anytime somebody comes out with a book, having now written two of them, I know what a big deal that is. And whether you're grinding for years on it, or you're getting some help on it, or whatever it is, I did write my own, by the way. It's a lot of effort, and almost like, I don't know. It's like, how do I say this without getting in trouble? Because my wife has heard me say this before, and she's yelled at me. It's like giving birth without any of that kind of work. Okay. I'm a guy. I don't understand what that is, but it is like bringing something into this world that people are going to enjoy. So I'm really proud of Rodney. Check out that book if you're interested in that topic. Let me get to my guest now. And we've got a lot to discuss within this podcast. She's no stranger to the C-suite. In fact, she's the kind of leader who doesn't just climb the ladder. She builds a new one and then shows you a smarter way up. Her name is Ashley McClellan, a trailblazing healthcare executive who stepped away from the comforts of corporate life to launch a bold new initiative. Today, she is founder and CEO of MedCurate, the digital marketplace putting curated careers at frontline workers' fingertips. By matching nurses with healthcare shifts, she's doing her part to cure the healthcare staffing crisis with less red tape, more transparency, and far fewer headaches. And coincidence or maybe not that I led in by, well, I always promote the staffing company, the recruiting firm that I talk about, Chief of Staff, and now I was talking about Rodney and the nursing home world, and I said, it may apply to everyone. It does. It applies to all of us, and Ashley can certainly speak to that much more in helping solve truly a crisis that I feel like shouldn't be this difficult, but we make a lot of things really, really difficult. I think in part just because it's the way we've always done things. I think that could be it in a nutshell. We'll get to it. Ashley, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Joel.
It's good to have you. As I was reading through my intro there, I was thinking, how many people have I had on this show that moved on from the previous life to take that big jump, almost as if we didn't know it existed before, right? That we were going down a certain path and realized, wait a minute, I could go do something totally different, or something I'm in control of, or something that I can build. And I'm curious when and where that, or what that aha moment was for you.
Yeah. So, I had the good fortune of being with a large healthcare system nationally and serving as a CEO for them across 3 different markets. And, regardless of when it was in my career, staffing has always been the number one challenge for healthcare organizations. It's 85% of their operating costs. And that really became more prevalent and exacerbated during the pandemic. So for me, it was serving as a hospital CEO during the pandemic here in Kansas City, being one of the hero hospitals that cohorted those patients that needed the highest level of care, and facing the challenge on a daily basis where hospitals were wanting to send us patients that needed that higher level of care, but we didn't have enough staff. And so I would reach out to the traditional staffing agencies, and the conversation went something like, hey, staffing agency, I need 2 extra ICU nurses tonight for our community to be served. And they would tell me what I needed to pay them to get access to that clinician. And to me, it felt more and more like a hostage negotiation than a partnership. And my aha moment was, what if the control of that conversation was not with the agency, but it was actually with those providing the care, whether it be the hospital or surgery center, and the clinician getting to choose when and where they work and how much that's for. And I was fortunate to be surrounded by a group of leaders here in Kansas City through YPO that have made a similar transition from corporate to entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I had the courage, because of their shared experiences, to take that leap.
It's such a different world, and I'm curious about that, because you're in a similar world in some ways. You know, I've talked to some people that go from being a fill in the blank recovering lawyer to some type of, you know what I mean? So you've taken all that expertise. It feels to me as though you took all this expertise and said, you know what, I want to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get into a lot of the details on that. You don't need to be in healthcare to understand this, because we're all in healthcare. We all need it. We're all touched by it, and we are all maddened by it. Whether that be the long waits when we go into the hospital, whether that be the complete confusion. I don't touch anything in terms of insurance. My wife handles all of that because it just makes my head spin too much. Mm-hmm. And so she's the unfortunate one that deals with that. But the point is, like, how many people really have a great experience? And that's just on my, the patient end of it, which all of us can relate to. But now you go back, and I remember hearing you present. And I was thinking so much about the industry, and like nowadays, if you're a nurse, it's a lot more intriguing, or it can be a lot more intriguing, just to be that traveling nurse, or to be able to pick up and go elsewhere, and to be able to create your own thing. And that's not anything that existed before, right? I mean, it did, but maybe it wasn't really on the radar until it had to be. What did the pandemic do to this whole thing? I mean, did it just take, I know it took the world, did it take the industry and just throw it upside down?
Yeah, it definitely exacerbated and expedited that staffing gap. So what we saw is a lot of people leave the healthcare workforce during the pandemic or post-pandemic based on burnout and other very valid reasons. And so I started doing research on how can we keep people in the workforce at the bedside longer, because when you look at the research and the number of people retiring, so our baby boomers, as they retire, are going to leave the clinical workforce, but then also need more clinical care as they age. Some people call that the gray tsunami. And so I started thinking to myself, how can we change the direction and outcome of that tsunami? And the research shows that individuals, and I'm sure this is similar for any industry, but individuals that feel that they have a say of when and where they work, and they have more control and flexibility, find greater satisfaction in the work they do. Their mental health is better, less burnout, greater retention. And so that was really the impetus of building the platform the way we did, all research informed. Finished my doctorate doing that research and continue to evolve in that thinking.
I'll step aside on one thing for a minute. Where do you have all the time to do all this, by the way? That's a lot of work, Ashley.
It is, but I think to your point and knowing a little bit about your story, Joel, when you love something, it doesn't seem like work. If you believe it's the right thing to do and it can benefit your community, it fuels that desire to progress. So I have a great support system in place that lets me do that. And but it's not like being in corporate America where you leave and maybe I was on call all the time, but at least there was a difference between work and home. Now I have an office, but I also work at home, and there's not that great separation between work and home now.
Yeah, I get people all the time, how do you have so many hours? So I guess I just asked you the question that everybody asks me, and I'm always a little surprised by it, in the sense that I'm like, well, that's just what we do.
Yeah. How do you answer that one, Joel?
Yeah, no, well, you know what I always say is I always say, like, well, I'm just working hard like everyone else, which I think ultimately is true. I just think that some of us, we're all over the place.
Mhm.
But then again, aren't we all at this point? You know, I mean, it's like if it wasn't this, it would be something else, I guess is the way that I put it. Look, maybe some of us are just wired in a way that we want to always be working. And I don't truly mean that. I do value the quiet time. I value my couch more than I've ever valued it before, when I can get out of the spotlight and when I can, so I'm going to less social things because I need to recharge in different ways. You know what I mean? Like, and that's part of the journey too, is figuring it out. I mean, and that, I'm sure that's it for you too. How has that changed for you though? Going from that more defined corporate job, even if you are often on call, there is no defined, I guess there truly are no defined hours, to this where you're making them up essentially as you go, and how are you prioritizing it all?
Yeah, I think, in the corporate setting, everything was measured at a certain frequency. And so there were a lot of standard meetings, timelines, expectations, and knew what those were. In the entrepreneurship side of things, you're creating those parameters, you're creating those milestones, you're celebrating them by yourself sometimes. No one's saying, hey, Joel, you really had a great meeting yesterday. I think that was a great collaboration. And so I try to outline parameters when I go to my office, when I'm doing my follow-up, block time for that. But because I enjoy it so much, I also find myself working at home when the kids go to bed and things like that. So it's different. I get to go to dental appointments for the kids and make the basketball games, but I'm also still working on emails at 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
By choice.
Yeah, by choice. I get it. My hours are a little bit different because I'm getting home from baseball at 10:30, 11 at night when I've got nothing left. So it might be in the morning. It might be, it's almost the reverse. But that's it. You find your time to be able to get it done. And there's some things you're just not going to get to. And anybody that's an entrepreneur in whatever field is going to understand every bit of that. It's just part of it. But I think that the key too, and you said it a couple of times, is that you like it. And so if you don't, and I don't begrudge anybody on that. If anything, I have a lot of empathy for people that are out there. I speak to a lot of these folks as well on stage that they're just trying to make ends meet. And so now it becomes a different challenge because you have to push yourself to find purpose in order to have the energy to go to work. What you're talking about, even when you're, and this is where I really relate to, Ashley, is that when you're on fumes, what I think pushes you through is the love of what you're doing and the understanding of the purpose of what that is. And it's the same thing for me. I mean, they're on the worst of days for me, meaning I'm tired, I'm worn out, maybe I'm not feeling great, whatever it is, I need a break. We just, as you and I are recording this, just had first off day in a little over 2 weeks. We'd had 16 straight games, but you know what? Like, I love what I do. And so that when the tank is empty is enough. That's the goal in trying to find this for the people that don't know where to dig when the tank is empty because there's nothing left to give. In your case, you have that, but I think it's greater than just loving what you're doing. There's a very clear purpose in what you're trying to do. And it's awfully robust. I mean, if we go to the website, medcurate.com, committed to curing the healthcare staffing crisis. That is not going to happen overnight. No. That. And I would imagine that the hope is that you could do that by the time you're done, right? That whenever you're done with this and you retire and live happily ever after, that you have cured it or made an impact in it. I mean, it's that big of a mountain to climb, right? And I'm guessing that's because we've always done things this way. This is the way it is. This is the way it's supposed to be. It's convenient. It's easy, at least for someone. So how big of a mountain is this to climb?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been the number one issue. And again, as I mentioned, throughout the pandemic, it became more visible to me as a key opportunity we needed to pivot on. So I think one of the challenges, the mountain to climb for me, has been articulating what MedCurate is and how it's different than a traditional staffing agency. So I jokingly say we're not a staffing agency, but we replace them. And so our platform being a marketplace like Uber or Match.com, we allow and credential clinicians for all of the regulatory requirements, and then they're able to self-select when and where they work. And healthcare organizations can post one shift at a time or blocks of shifts. Where historically, Joel, and maybe the audience doesn't know that the traditional way it works is a staffing agency would employ a pool of clinicians and then tell them, hey, you're going to work at hospital X or surgery center B. And that was really based on what was best for the agency, not necessarily what was the greatest need in the community or what was best for that clinician. And so giving them the control is exciting, but it's also a complete change to how it's been done historically.
Yeah. I'm so fascinated by this because I think it reflects the world right now. And your industry is slow to change. And you're not the only one too. I could say the world of baseball has been slow to change because this is the way it's always been done, and on and on. Education, incredibly slow to change. But we're seeing such rapid movement right now between the pandemic, as you've mentioned, between technology and artificial intelligence. Like, it feels to me right now like we're at a pivot point in the world in a way that our grandkids won't even know what it looked like before, in the way that our kids heard about a landline, on and on and on, right? Like that, wait a minute, there were no cell phones and there was no internet. I mean, I remember those days. I don't want to necessarily go back to them. Life is easier in some ways. In some ways, it's more complicated. But you've said something a couple times that keeps resonating with me when I think about what I hear from especially younger people. They want to say, they want control. We grew up in a time, I'm older than you, but we grew up in a time where we didn't really have a say and we didn't expect to have a say. So, like, I'll say to audiences all the time that I grew up with the thought and being taught that you just work and you work harder.
Yes.
And, we didn't know what work-life balance was. And I'm still trying to figure that out and doing a little bit better of a job. But that was okay. That was, if times are tough or you're struggling, then suck it up and go work harder. And I don't think I'm ever going to change from that. I'm trying to get a little better with it. But I wouldn't ask the younger generation to do that, not because they're lazy, but because we've come to understand that might not have been the best way to do things. And so when I hear you talking about giving some say to those nurses, giving some say to that staff, I'm just curious if you've seen a re-energized workforce. Because I know that one of the things that we heard a lot about during the pandemic as we were celebrating nurses and healthcare workers and first responders as heroes, which they are and they were, we also heard about so many leaving the industry because they couldn't take it anymore. The hours, the demand, the politics, the everything to it. Are you seeing them want to come back now that they understand that there's a different way to do this?
Yeah, I think one of the most pleasant surprises in this process, I had a hypothesis that maybe the clinicians that would join the platform would be more the tech forward, perhaps a younger generation that wants more of that work-life balance. And while we have a good portion of that on our platform, we also see those clinicians that are in their 40s and 50s and 60s and have done it for generations or decades, and they're like, I can't do my 312s and take X number of days of call, but if I could just work 2 days a week, I'd stay at the bedside. So we see a lot of people not leaving because they can have input in terms of how they work. But then to your point, we're also seeing people that stepped away that are wanting to get back, that through our marketplace platform, they can choose, I'm not sure if I want to go back to this setting, so I'm going to try a surgery center and home health and a community hospital and see which is the right fit. And through us, if they go and work at those sites through our platform and find a place they want to be their employer, then we support that transition and don't have a placement fee because we're truly trying to help with healthcare staffing as a partner.
I mentioned the website before, and I just wanted to mention this because it does not look like a website in the past that you would have seen in the healthcare industry, meaning this, that if I look at it, and of course, it's got everything that everybody else would have, the contact, the about, who's it for, but all over the place, what I've seen at least 3-4 times on here is how to get the app. That's the world that we live in. That's where my mind went to, because like, how hard is it for anyone in the healthcare industry, a consumer, a patient like myself, someone that works in the industry, that you're navigating just all this stuff. So you're very much living in the tech world, right? I
Yes.
mean, you are a healthcare entrepreneur, but you are also a tech entrepreneur too.
Yes.
What is that marriage? Because I think it's not that it's a brilliant one. I mean, it is. It just feels like so much can be outdated. And especially if you're appealing to the younger generation, they only know that way.
Yes.
So why are we not marketing to them? So I would think that, in your world, that if you make this available to the younger generation, this is their language. Yes. But then to your point before too, if they're in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, a lot of them are doing that as well, or starting to learn that, wait a minute, this is a really cool thing. How important is that? Because I think that if you can't speak that language, you're I don't know, you might be obsolete.
Yeah, I mean, I think with everything in every industry, and including healthcare, technology is becoming more and more prevalent in their daily work, and the way we automate processes or documentation so that they can spend more time with patients. And so, this solution is beneficial on both sides. So, for example, if you are an ICU nurse manager and you need 2 more nurses tonight because you have an influx of patients, the way it typically works is that ICU manager is calling, texting, and sending group meet messages to everyone that worked last night, who, by the way, is trying to sleep right now, right, to see if they can come in tonight for $20 more an hour.
And nobody wants to do that.
And they hate doing that. The research shows they spend over 60% of their time trying to staff their units. And the individuals that are trying to sleep don't want phone calls and texts. And so on their side, we have push notifications. So they sign up for their preferences and say, hey, I'm open to working, these nights or these days on these types of units. And so when they wake up, they'll see, oh, there's 3 shifts I can work tonight, and my plans are canceled, so I'm up for signing up. So I'll swipe right and work tonight, or I'll swipe left and get rest. And that's what people are hoping for these days. And so I think what gets me really excited is to have curated solutions that work for both sides of the marketplace, where both sides benefit from a time, financial, and experience.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, and I've heard you talk about it before. Having walked in these shoes before too, and understanding the stress in finding someone at the last minute. It's stressful on all ends, right? And then you're getting the eye roll from the nurse. That's like, I don't want to do this. So they feel like they have no say. You must feel helpless in terms of a staffing standpoint. So I'm curious what you're hearing from both ends now. What's the feedback you're getting from both ends? Because I'm guessing there's a lot of relief.
Yeah. From the nurse leaders that have been historically spending the majority of their time in staffing, they're able to spend more time with their patients and with their own, workforce and developing them. So there's greater satisfaction, less burnout from their perspective. The feedback we get from them is they feel like they found a partner that's genuinely an extension of their team, which is the goal. And then on the clinician side, they're saying, hey, I didn't know if I'd work again in a hospital, but I found a great fit at XYZ location. Or, hey, I didn't know you had partial shifts. I can work now when my child is at summer camp or summer school. And so getting the feedback from both sides of finding something that didn't exist historically that now better meets their needs, that's what gets me excited to keep iterating and evolving to continue to better meet the need.
So what are the next steps for you? I was joking with you, I think, before we went on, that entrepreneurship never ends. The list is never ending. And I've got to think from a scaling standpoint, the ceiling is endless, right? Which is very exciting. So, but it means you're always going to be busy, thankfully, and something that you love. What are the next steps as you continue to grow this?
Yeah, so for us, we're we're in hospital settings, surgery center, outpatient clinics, including federally qualified healthcare clinics, and then home health. So and post-acute. So we're with a few national contracts where we've focused in a couple geographies to start. And then we're growing with them over time to those other geographies. And those are really great relationships with us as we grow nationally. One other thing that's really exciting for us is we have the ability to integrate and have a multi-tenant version of this. So what that means from a tech speak perspective is a large physician group can use this technology to dispatch their providers to the different clinics and sites that might need their care. And so they can use it internally for their own people and also have an integration to our external MedCurate platform if they need extra support from one of our clinicians to fill that need. So my vision broadly is we connect with the scheduling systems of these organizations and groups, and no one ever has to post a shift. It is all automated. When there is a gap, it can either be filled internally through the coordination or sent externally to our platform. And ideally, that improves the experience for everyone involved and the cost.
How's the older, and when I say older generation, I mean, my generation, Gen X. I suppose there are boomers still in the workplace. I mean, it's, I've got a good friend that speaks on this, Jeff Udick, who's been a guest on this podcast, and we've done some work together as well. And he talks about this is the first time ever we've had 4 generations in the workplace. You referenced earlier that some of those boomers are going straight from that to needing that care. But how are the 50 and 60 somethings? How are they doing this? Because I have to think that the 20 somethings are like, oh yes, please. This is my language, as I said before, as they're ordering their DoorDash and grabbing their Uber and on and on and on, because we don't have to talk to anybody. And let me order my Starbucks while I'm on my way to the shop. We could just push a bunch of buttons and it's all right there at our fingertips. The 20-year-olds know how to do that. The 30-year-olds know how to do that. Probably the 40s. I would like to say in my 50s, I know how to do that as well. It doesn't take me too long. Now, if I were to ask my parents to do it, we'd have to explain it to them a little bit. They're not in the workforce anymore. How generationally is this being received?
Yeah, I mean, broadly, regardless of generation, we've tried to make it very user-friendly and adaptable. So I would say we get great feedback at all levels. I mean, it's incredibly intuitive. It's hard to mess it up. And so all generations are enjoying it. What I think is really exciting is those clinicians and healthcare providers that have been in the workforce for 30 plus years. They have a very broad skill set. And maybe they've been in one care setting or one department for 30 of those years, but they've always wanted to try X. They've wanted to go to, PACU, where they're recovering patients post-surgery, or ICU, and they have the skill set that will allow them to do that. So they're getting to, I call it the gateway, they're getting to try out and extend their skill set at all ages. But really those more tenured clinicians are very valuable to a lot of the healthcare organizations that they're going to, because they have such a broad skill set to bring.
I've got to think that, for the younger generation that's finding their way, it gives them a chance to try out some different areas, and they certainly would have, if not the experience, the qualifications to do a lot of that. And so maybe it's their way to figure out where they want to go instead of having to commit to one spot. And then the older generation is saying, I can have a little bit of fun now, and maybe they're burned out in a certain area and they can go and have that flexibility for the first time in their lives.
Yeah. We'll see. Hey, we're going to pick up shifts during the school year, but they help watch their grandkids in the summer. Great. There's no required commitment, cost, et cetera, for them to do so. And so it's allowing them to work the way they want to, and therefore allowing us to keep them in the workforce as well.
All right. I want to hit the baseball themed questions. Then I've got 4 fun ones at the end. Oh, they might be fun. They may not. We'll see. Okay. Biggest home run you've hit. I mean, you've been out there working and doing a lot for a lot of years, but I'm guessing, I know that MedCurate now is your passion, well, among many others as well. But how about a home run? What's the biggest home run that you've hit?
I've thought about this question, and I'd say the biggest home run for me has been, regardless of the size of the organization, the geography, the situation, it's been the teams that I've been able to build and the leaders that I've been able to build at each of the organizations and steps along the way. I think, like a coach, I'm very sports oriented, as you can probably tell behind me, but finding the right mix and skill set and getting the most out of your players, and helping them see things for themselves that maybe they didn't know was even possible. And so when I find the most joy, it's when someone exceeds their own expectations and finds a path forward.
Okay, how about a swing and a miss? I know that in your world of entrepreneurship, there are always many of them, and I always say they're good swings and misses if we learn from them. So what's a swing and a miss you've taken, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this long enough to have enough swing and misses. I would say, all of it has been about timing for me. You can have a great swing, and it can be the right swing, but if it's at the right time, the wrong time, you're going to miss. Yep. And so for me, whether it was a promotion I thought that was the right time, but it wasn't, or launching, a specific service line, but then the pandemic hit, or, hey, we're going to get all these clients in our first year as a startup. It's all about timing and being patient. And I think for me, I learned more about that as I've evolved in my maturity as a leader, and just trying to wait for the right pitch, because you never know when it's coming.
Yeah. Okay. How about small ball? The little things that add up to big results. What's small ball for you?
Yeah, for me, it's really, it's the little things, investing in the team and investing in relationships where things might not seem like a big deal, but remembering those milestones or those moments. So whether it's, I'm thinking about one of our clients, their child was going off to college, and, remembering the day that they were helping them get moved in, sending, a university mom coffee mug to them, et cetera, to help them get through that day. It's just being thoughtful in those little moments and opportunities to build relationships over time. And it doesn't mean you're going to hit a home run right away, but it's what I enjoy, and I think it's the right thing to do. And you and I have talked before about it's not about hitting home runs every time. It's the singles, it's the doubles, and all of those things, in my opinion, add up and really make it why I enjoy leading and building.
It's why I love baseball as a teaching tool, and also it's easy to make these references and make these analogies too. And I so often hear this from the best hitters in baseball in an interview, who almost always say, I wasn't trying to hit the home run. So the home runs are a product of all the other good work you're doing. Yes. And by the way, I'm a firm believer that you can win in life with singles and doubles, and the home runs will actually come from that. So that's my little baseball tie-in with that. Let me go to go on.
And when you spoke on one of your other podcasts, you talked about, baseball players, swing and miss 70% of the time they fail. And that really resonated with me as an entrepreneur, because you have to be very comfortable with failure and coming back from that and moving forward. And so I think, just as for the fellow entrepreneurs out there, make sure you listen to that podcast because it was very meaningful for me.
Well, there's something, I say to audiences so much that when I'm doing my keynotes, that I don't think in your industry you're going to be thought of too highly if you're failing 70% of the time. But if you learn how to manage failure the way baseball players, the best ones, do, Salvador Perez is the best I've ever seen at it, where he could go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, and he's already excited about the next day. And so now that doesn't mean you want to live with the failure and be happy with it. You have to evaluate it and understand. But I just think there's so many lessons to be learned, and we're not wired for failure because we expect and hope for success. But can you find, I heard a player the other day saying this, and I've heard many versions of this, can you find the wins in the failure? That to me is everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when I think about pitchers and leaders, I historically at the corporate level would come in as the closer and had a phenomenal team of leaders and organization that would, bring, maybe it's a new surgeon to the table to launch a service line at the hospital. And I would be there toward the end of the conversation and finish the conversation, hopefully land the player, land the surgeon. And as an entrepreneur, I'm the warm-up, I'm the starter. I'm all the pitchers. So there's a lot more failure that comes with that, and
Yeah.
and being comfortable and learning from each of those and how to do it better each time at each level. So it's been very humbling, but very rewarding.
Okay, follow up to that, and then we'll get to the 4 final questions. What part's the hardest? The in a pitcher's role, so to speak, the opening or the closing?
Ooh, that's a great question. Depends on who you open with. I think what I've learned is every organization's different, just probably like every team or every batter you're pitching to is different. And so you have to adapt on your approach to that. And then also you can have great conversations with that opener, but when it comes to the very end of the game or the final pitch, it depends on who's at bat then. Who's the decision maker? Yeah. Have I connected with them? Can I make that successful for both of us and get it across the finish line? So honestly, the opener might be the hardest just to get the ball moving.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, 4 final questions as we round the bases. As if you don't have enough else going on, you've got another business and on the plaza. Tell me about that, because I'll back away from the whole, I don't know how you have time for all of it. You're surrounded by good people, you're passionate, you're energetic, you love what you do. But I think that MedCurate would and does keep you busy, but you've got another something on the side too, huh?
Yeah, so I'm in, January of 23, when I knew I was leaving corporate America and announced that, I came across some individuals that were talking about this hotel being built on the plaza called Cascade Hotel. And socially was having a conversation and said, great, I hope they have a nice spa. And they said, well, the developer wants one, but they want someone that's a local that knows how to run business, that's going to do it really high end and have a great experience. And my husband, Brett, was standing with me, and I knew it would take a while to build out the tech for MedCurate. And I kind of looked at him and he goes, okay. I said, well, tell them I'll do it. So met with the developer team and really was excited to build a luxury destination in Kansas City. So to have a spa within a hotel that's on such a great property on the Country Club Plaza, we're hoping to bring accessible luxury to everyone in Kansas City. I spent almost 20 years in Texas before coming back in 2019. But when I had friends that wanted to come visit and said, great, let's do a staycation and do hotel and spa, there wasn't anything within our metroplex. And so it was something that was on the back of the radar, and something that we wanted to do and be local business owners as well in this town that we're both from. It is ADA accessible. That's another passion of mine. So typically furniture, fixtures, and equipment don't have to meet certain ADA specifications, but we worked with Sunlight and Saunas, which is a local company here in Kansas City, the Zacks, to build an ADA sauna. And then we also worked with a company that does the massage and treatment tables to have one that lowers, so that someone could transition themselves from their device, from their wheelchair, walker, etc., to be able to receive services. So really excited to bring something to the region that I saw a need for. And we have a wonderful director. Her name's Ashley as well, just to make it more confusing.
Of course.
She runs that on a daily basis, and we're just grateful to be a part of the Kansas City community.
So that's a lot, but also, pretty amazing. Aaron Zach, by the way, you mentioned the Zach family. He's been a guest on this podcast. It's been a few years back. So they do great work there. They're not just local. They're really a national company that happens to be here. Great people. Okay. Second question, as we round the bases, you referenced coming back. I know you grew up here and you were in Texas for so many years. And I was looking through the bio and all the awards. By the way, we could spend another hour talking about all the different awards and honors. I won't put you through that, other than to say that, I was looking, and, to go from 2019 Houston Women's Chamber Breakthrough Woman of the Year, then coming back home and being a part of 2021, the Business Journal Women Who Mean Business. That's such an elite group. I have so many friends in there. And, we were talking before we went on about the isolation that can come in entrepreneurship. I think there could be a lot of isolation too of being a woman in the business world. I think the world's getting a little better. I hope the world is getting a little bit better, but we still have a long ways to go. I was just wondering what that group and having that, because there's so many successful, strong, unbelievable women in that group. I know them because a lot of them are my friends, and I've been lucky enough through my networking to get to know them. It is to put it no other way, a kick-ass group of women. What is that group meant to you as you go on this journey?
I think for me, I grew up here, but then was gone for a while. So coming back, I knew there was a lot more to Kansas City than what I was exposed to when I was a student, growing up. And I was committed to learning about the different areas of Kansas City and the different leaders and what they do. And being a part of, now they call it Women of Influence for Kansas City Business Journal, they just changed that, really allowed me to be exposed to a lot of these women that maybe I grew up alongside or maybe a generation apart, doing great things in the community. And so for me, when we went to build Sojourn Spa, several of the people that were a part of the project, including Monarch Build and Courtney Conkle, built the spa. And I've chosen to work with leaders that are invested in our community, female, if possible. And that group really lifts one another up and supports each of us in our different phase of entrepreneurship and leadership.
All right. Third question as we round the bases. You have someone right over your right shoulder that lifts everyone up. A good man. I'm switching from the women to the men. Not your husband, but I know he does too. But there's a great painting or picture behind you with the words "believe." Well, you can see the words "believe." The middle of the words are blocked by the head of Ted Lasso, aka Jason Sudeikis, who is a Kansas City native too. I love it. It's so strategically placed right over your shoulder. It makes for a great shot for anybody that's watching us on YouTube. But boy, Ted Lasso took the world by storm and has impacted all of us in some way or another. So I'm wondering about the significance for you.
Yeah, so big fan of Jason Sudeikis and Ted Lasso. I'm on the board at Children's Mercy Health System as well, and the work he's done through Big Slick with several other actors and actresses in Kansas City has just been phenomenal, and we're really grateful for that. But for me, with Ted Lasso, his leadership lessons that he talks about throughout the show and sprinkles in a way with humor where it's non-threatening, was just brilliant. And the believe, for me, I saw, this is by a local artist, Nicholas Kent Clark, saw this piece at Cafe Trio on the Plaza over the holidays and fell in love with it. One, because I love the show, the leadership lessons, but the message of believe, because when you're an entrepreneur, you have to believe in yourself an insane amount, because everyone else is saying it can't be done. It's never been done. How are you going to do that? And so I told my husband, Brett, and so for Mother's Day, he found the artist and had the piece done so that every day when I come in, it reminds me to keep believing in myself and the work that we're doing and why it's meaningful. And, another one of the sayings that he has is, be curious, not judgmental. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've tried to instill with our sons as well is, be open to new ideas, be curious of how things work and why people approach things differently, because I believe you learn more by asking questions than talking and making judgments. And so it resonated with me and it makes me smile every time I walk in.
I love it. I couldn't agree anymore. And what a good job by Brett, by the way. That's a great Mother's Day gift. So make sure he's got that pat on the back. That is the gift that'll keep on giving. Well done. Last question, the walk off. I asked you a little bit about the scaling and challenges and everything. Let's just look forward to, say, 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. What does the industry look like? What do you want it to look like?
What I want it to look like is employees or clinicians are really engaged in getting to do the work that they want to do and how they want to do it. I understand, as someone that has to staff a hospital, you have to make sure you have coverage. But the way that we've done that historically I think looks radically different 10 years from now, based on how people want to do the work and how to attract the best talent to perform at their peak in doing that work. And so I see more people being willing to enroll in those clinical programs because they know there are options that are going to offer them flexibility that they're hopeful for, and closing the gap in terms of nurse vacancy across the US. So I want that shortage and shortfall to be smaller and allow people more choice in what they're doing. So better retention, better engagement, better mental health means better care for our community. And I hope that we can partner on both sides to make a little difference in that space.
It's all tied together. You do that, people are going to be healthier, people are going to be happier, and I mean, the world's a better place. That might be not said as well as a Ted Lasso would, but it's got that same good feel to it. And really, if we're healthier and happier, the world's a better place, right?
Agreed. Absolutely.
Keep up the great work. I so love the passion that you have for everything you're doing, and it shows, and the effects certainly will be experienced, I believe, by people in the workforce and those of us patients for years and years to come. The website, again, if you're curious about it, I just want to learn about it, or if you're in the industry, MedCurate.com. We will have it in the show notes. Ashley, thanks so much for spending time. Congratulations on all of the success and continued success.
Thank you so much for having me, Joel.
It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.